Thank you very much, Senator Parker, one of our honorary women. If there are any questions, Senator Liz Kruger will take questions at this point in time. Senator Kruger.
No, I also, well, see, we have an additional fabulous woman senator named Ruth Hassel Thompson, and she couldn't join us today. And so we wanted to make sure, we also told you there was going to be a third forum specific to the issues of domestic violence and the impact on our communities. And of course, domestic violence isn't unique to women, but it's disproportionately an issue for women. And so a third forum will be taking place, I believe, May 30th, around the issues of domestic violence and a series of pieces of legislation that are also being held up but are critical for us to move forward on. And it all ties together. So if you're concerned about the impact on children of poverty, of not coming from households where they have enough food to eat, they aren't sure whether they're going to have a stable place to live because of poverty. Now multiply that with the impact of domestic violence. Talk about the issues of being concerned about a woman's ability to stay in the workforce and take responsibility for herself and her family at a living wage. In fact, one of the common patterns among abusers are to try to make it impossible for the person who's being abused to be able to stay in the workforce because of the recognition that if they have economic independence, you have lost a major piece of control over them and their lives. And so your power is taken away by their ability to control their own economic future and their own decisions about can they leave, where can they go. So again, the war on women is real. And New York State, okay, this is great. We're not one of the worst states in the nation. I don't know about anyone else here, but I don't really want to go home as a legislator being able to proudly say, well, we're not as bad as X, Y, and Z state. But in 2012, we still seriously flunked the test of making sure that we have laws on our books that guarantee whether you're a man or a woman in your workplace, in your home, you're going to have equal rights to access to health care, equal rights to decision-making about your own body and your own life, and equal opportunities in the job market. And now we are happy to take questions. We are happy to take questions.
I would focus on getting this concern that some of these issues that you're trying to highlight kind of gets overshadowed when language like war on women is used. Is it slightly hyperbolic and wind up taking away from the issues that you're trying to highlight here?
Well, first off, we're all in politics. Well, maybe not everyone, but most of us here are in politics. And so when we watch presidential debates, and it's like a train crash, I couldn't not watch the presidential debates. And I see people running for the highest office in this country saying they actually don't think women should have equal rights, shouldn't have the right to make their own decisions about health care and their body, say that they think that all this prioritization for schools and children is a waste of government money. It's not hyperbolic. It's not like somebody was overhearing a conversation in the luncheonette that 3 people thought this way. These are people running for the presidency of the United States. And in fact, while the Republican candidate has yet to ultimately be chosen, for the record, every single Republican candidate for president in this country is anti-choice. So I don't think, as a woman, it's hyperbolic to say, oh crap, we're in real trouble here, right? The men who are running for president don't think our rights should be respected or protected under the law.
Can I add something?
Sorry.
Very quickly, you take a look at, sorry. You take a look at other states in the country, and you can see the war. Would you rather we call it an assault or an affront? To me, they're synonyms. It's a war. And you look at North Carolina, you look at the state of Florida, you look at the state of Kansas, and women's rights are under assault. To me, that's a war.
If I could just Just follow up on that. I mean, one of the, particularly when it comes to national issues, one of the criticisms of Washington is a hyper-partisan atmosphere. Does language like that help that, or does it inflame it?
I think it just to add to it. You know, I think what Senator Visky said is best. Call it what it is. You know, it's an assault. It's a war on women. It's basic rights. You know, when you have a congressional panel who talk about women's reproductive rights, when you don't have one woman on that panel, what is that saying to you? You have to call it what it is. And you can't be afraid, and you can't hide behind words. This is what it actually is, especially when you have women who, when we're looking at the voter electorate, over 50% consist of women. Women are the backbone of the families. In some instances, are the breadwinners of families. You know, and Senator Parker talked about you have Mother's Day, and we honor them for Mother's Day. They don't want to only be honored for Mother's Day. They want to be honored every single day. Only thing they're asking for, treat me equal like you would treat everyone equal. Give me the same rights, the privacies and the privilege that you give to everyone else. You know, I'm not going to be afraid, because if you were afraid to say what it is, then all of a sudden it doesn't bring it to the attention that's needed. It is truly a war on women, and the women haven't created the atmosphere of war. It's others who have created that atmosphere.
Speaking more generally about sort of the way that the conference has tried to deal with a lot of these issues that it's felt blocked on, the playbook is clearly developing that it is sort of challenge the other side, ask for a hearing, be denied a hearing, be denied a resolution, and then hold forums. We've seen that just recently on minimum wage, on hybrid fracking, on a number of things. Is this a politically effective way to go about it? Clearly, it is not having the desired effect, I assume, which is to get these issues to the floor. But in your respective communities, and this is sort of a jump ball question, is this strategy effective politically?
I think the strategy is very effective, because if you look at, everybody talks about how functioning Albany is, but you know, it's what I call organized chaos. When you're stifling debates, when you are bottling up bills, basically when you are preventing the public, especially their elected officials, to talk about issues that are important to us. We are elected by over 300,000 people in our individual districts. They want to hear issues and concerns that impact them on a day-to-day basis. And when you have our colleagues across the aisle who stymie that, that's not democracy. You know, everybody talks about everything can be functioning in orderly fashion, but I call that, once again, organized chaos. Because when the people are not hearing what they want to hear, when they're not dealing with the issues that truly impact the way they live, that's why we are elected. And, you know, we are the vocal minority. Because if you look at things that happen in society and policies that have changed, it has been the vocal minority that has pushed the majority to make the effective change, policy-wise, to make sure that we are the voice for the voiceless out there.
Can I add something to that?
And I'm going to.
There's a parallel between what we're fighting today and the civil rights movement, because for years, separate but equal was the policy. And it wasn't until the Supreme Court in, I think, 1954 said separate but equal is inherently unequal. And I see a parallel with the women's movement of the last 10 or 15 or 20 years. We're supposed to stay in our place. That's not happening because we're still in the separate but equal, and I think we're going backwards. I think the generation of gains that we've achieved since abortion became legal in New York State, I think we're going backwards, and we're trying to reverse that trend. It's no longer know your place, but we're speaking out for the future generations.
That was the point I was going to make before we go to the next question. The fact is that New York State was the first state in the Union to legalize reproductive freedom and abortion. And it wasn't until 2 years later that the federal government did the same. And we have a bill now, Andrea's bill, which just updates what we said back in 1970. And that it cannot move, it just simply boggles the mind, because it means that we're going to be moving backwards, because that bill needs to be updated. And to keep talking about us as a minority, I believe we are, and I can be corrected, but I think we are 53% of the workforce. And I think, as far as population, we are 51 or 52% of the population. So we are not the minority. And, I mean, just think of what would happen if all the women said, we're not going to work today. It'd be pretty fun.
My question, I'd ask any of the members whether you thought Governor Cuomo was a part of the solution or part of the problem here, because we know that he's raising money for the Assembly Democrats to help them maintain their majority, and he's not doing, correct me if I'm wrong, he's not doing anything for you guys. And some people are arguing that he is tacitly supporting the Senate Republicans to try to keep them, to let them hold on to their majority.
I think that's a separate and not so relevant question for today. As Susie just said, we're here saying we're legislators, we're elected by whatever number of constituents were in our district, but we're here to represent 19.5 million people. And over half of those 19.5 million people are in fact women, and women aren't getting a fair shake under New York State law, and they're not getting a fair shake in their communities and in their ability to make their own decisions and to earn equal pay and to make sure that their children have quality child care and to be able to go someplace when they need and have a mammogram or a cervical cancer screening or reproductive health, and that this is much bigger than any individual's position on a specific question about politics in any given day. But in fact, technically the governor does have a role here, because the model that this state has in our Constitution are two houses of the legislature working deliberatively around legislation, and then a governor supporting or vetoing bills. And certainly the governor, within his power, has the ability to advocate and support particular bills. He has his ability to introduce programmatic bills. So the governor has a day job, which is to ensure that quality legislation that will protect New Yorkers and ensure that they live safely in their homes and in their communities and can thrive. That is all of our job description. So it doesn't matter whether we're assembly members, it doesn't matter whether we're senators, and it doesn't really matter what party we are and who likes who on what day. We have a structural responsibility. And again, I would bet if you asked almost any woman on the street in any town or community in the state of New York how things are going, and does she think that the laws are out there to protect her equally, that you would find an enormous number of women saying, we just don't think we're being heard. And that's really the fundamental problem that we need to address here.
Governor Cuomo had previously not really committed to throwing his full weight and clout behind any of the outstanding issues, minimum wage being one of them. But today he made very clear that his top legislative priority is going to be this overhaul of human services. Now that he sort of has a horse in this race, do you feel as though it would be appropriate to go to him to try and get him to back some of these issues that you're talking about?
Yes, I think it's totally appropriate to ask for the governor's support for any and all of the bills that we'll be discussing at our 3 soon-to-be events. We might want to invite the governor as well as other senators to come. Perhaps you would like to send representatives.